Hello, dear friends. This is Sofya Dorinskaya with you. I am the head of the Center for Medical Information at the School of Mental Health. Today I want to answer the question of how I feel about homeopathy. Let's figure out what homeopathy is. Homeopathy, the idea behind this treatment is treating if, for example, we see a person with a high fever, then traditional medicine will make efforts to get rid of this, to bring down this fever, to lower it. Homeopathy, on the other hand, will give a substance that raises the temperature in the hope that the body will get scared, yes, and rush to resolve this problem, and in this way it will lower the temperature to some, normal or slightly elevated levels, right? That is, it won't be so extremely high. There is also, for example, such a phenomenon as the use of fly agaric, amanita, poison. It has been observed that people who do not have hallucinations, if they take fly agaric poison, will experience hallucinations. But there is also an observation that people who are experiencing hallucinations, if they take fly agaric poison, of course in small doses, their hallucinations disappear. So what is the problem here? The problem here is that the underlying cause of the condition is not being addressed. After all, you have to agree, a person doesn't develop hallucinations because they lack fly agaric poison, right? So what is the cause? It could be tumor breakdown, cancer, starvation, some kind of toxic poisoning, or an aneurysm in the brain pressing on certain parts of the brain, right? For example, it presses on the optic nerve and causes visual hallucinations. What is it? And here there are major questions about this. We encounter situations where children are prescribed toxic substances, like strychnine, for example, right? Very often children are prescribed strychnine. The medication has a very nice sounding name, but when you read the ingredients and look into what it actually is, it turns out to be strychnine. You might ask me, but listen, what about homeopathy? And absolutely. And I'm sure you'll write in the comments that homeopathy works, that something was wrong, and then it got better, that something was wrong, and then it improved. Most likely homeopathy will work in some cases. Why and when does it work? When we observe in principle a healthy person without vitamin deficiencies, without any obvious pathologies, and yet something is not quite right with them, maybe it's their mood or some other problem. And so, administering a very small controlled dose of poison, just a short-term and minor dose of poison, can actually be beneficial in some way. It can truly help a person and, sort of reinvigorate their entire system and perk them up. Why? Because when the body is eliminating this poison, this toxin, it gathers all its strength and kind of gets excited. Oh, something has happened. Why? Where did this poison come from, right? And it starts working more actively, and perhaps in the process it will also resolve the problem that caused the person's decline. Perhaps. If a person is weakened, if they have vitamin deficiencies, if they already have some serious problem, then giving poison might not work, to be honest. And we see at our Center for Medical Information that, for example, when children with serious problems come in, they take homeopathy. We see from comparative tests that this always leads to a worsening of their condition. We stop it, leave them with vitamins, nutrition, and so on. The situation improves. The problem also lies in the fact that it's not a big deal if this microdose of poison is given for a very short time, you see? It might still work just a little bit, yes, just for a short while. You can compare it, situationally. You have a shot of cognac, something's wrong, I don't know, maybe an upset stomach, you can't sleep. You have a shot of cognac, you calm down. And that's it, basically things sort of even out. It's also essentially a toxic substance. But if a toxic substance starts being taken for months on end, a kind of, toxic binge, nothing good will come of it, because then chronic poisoning of the body begins, you see? And the body then has to constantly work to eliminate this toxic substance. And the person themselves, already has some kind of problem that hasn't been identified, hasn't been clarified, hasn't been resolved. There might be some underlying basic vitamin deficiency, primary or secondary, going on as well, right? Underlying this pathology. Everyone has forgotten. We don't know anything. And then we start trying to cover it up with strychnine, so to speak, right? What do we end up with as a result? Nothing good. That's why I have this attitude toward homeopathy. We should be looking for the cause, you see, doctors. We should be resolving the cause. Because when we address the cause, the situation is resolved. We don't need to eat fly agaric poison or strychnine. We don't need anything like that. We don't need to drink cognac to fall asleep when the cause is resolved. But when the cause hasn't been found, that's when problems start. That's when we start poking around in all directions. And it's not a fact that the direction we've ended up in is actually the right one. What other consequences might there be? That's my attitude toward homeopathy. If it works, great, but just understand that even though these are microdoses, it's still poison, and be very careful with it. This was Sofya with you. All the best. Goodbye.